With the League of Women Voters. Welcome to this Meet the Candidate Forum for Hilltop and Southwest Columbus races. We're excited to bring you this event in partnership with the Greater Hilltop Area Commission. We hope this will provide you information about the upcoming November election. Please make sure you have a voting plan for the November 8th elections. Early in-person voting started last week, October 12th, at the Franklin County Board of Elections on Morse Road. If you want to vote by mail, you must submit a written absentee ballot request form to the Board of Elections. Election day is Tuesday, November 8th. You can verify your election day polling location by contacting the Franklin County Board of Elections. In addition to the candidate forum, our league publishes a voter guide for Franklin County where candidates provide written answers to questions. Our voter guide is currently available at vote411.org. And if you're in the audience, we have hard copies on this table or here. The voter guide does list all candidates and issues on the ballot for Franklin County. The League of Women Voters is dedicated to expanding public awareness about government issues and encouraging active participation in government. The League does not support or oppose political parties or candidates. Please visit our website to learn more about the League or to become a member. Now I will turn this event over to tonight's moderator, Malik Moore, who's a commissioner with the Greater Hilltop Area Commission.
Thank you so much. Good evening, neighbors. It feels so good to have us in this room. And already I'm sensing a spirit of civility, right? And so, of course, we're going to have some disagreements, but we're going to all agree to disagree in an agreeable manner. So welcome to this Meet the Candidates Forum. The races participating in tonight's event are Ohio Senate District 3, Ohio House Districts 10, several Franklin County Common Pleas judicial races, and statewide issues 1 and 2. I will begin by explaining the procedures which were agreed to by all participating candidates. So tonight, each candidate will give a 1-minute introductory statement. And then after that, I will ask questions and candidates will be permitted no more than 2 minutes to answer each of the questions. The exception will be for our judicial candidates. You all get 1 minute, okay, to answer each of the questions. Each candidate will have an opportunity to answer the question, and then I'll change the order in which candidates are asked the question for each of the subsequent questions I'll have. So candidates will have 1 minute as well to give a closing statement. Some of the questions have been pre-written and the remainder will be solicited from the audience. Audience members, if you wish to ask a question, please submit that question in writing. You'll see volunteers from the League of Women Voters walking around, ready to receive those questions. And they also reserve the right to reject audience questions if they are seen to be inappropriate or duplicative. Okay, so the candidates can see our timekeeper when they're up here, they'll know. All right, that's what they're going to see. So if they continue to speak, you will hear me speak over them and thank them so that we can move forward in a timely manner. So again, our timekeeper will be a key piece this evening, and she'll indicate when there's 30 seconds remaining and when their time has expired. Again, if you hear me say thank you, candidates, that means it's time for another person to speak and time to move on. So first, this evening, we're going to hear from Ohio House District 10's candidates. We should have Mr. David Dobos. Thank you, sir. And we should also have Mr. Russell Harris. All right. So with that, Mr. Dobos, I am going to give you 1 minute to introduce yourself, and then we will allow Mr. Harris. Please come and be seated, candidates.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
All right, so again, Mr. Dobos, you will introduce yourself. Mr. Harris, just so you know, you're going to get the first question. All right.
Good evening. First of all, thank you to the Greater Hilltop Area Commission and to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this evening. I am Dave Dobos, Republican candidate in House District 10 which for purposes of the Hilltop area is south of Sullivan Avenue to Hague Avenue. Then it stair steps its way down to Mound Street, and that's pretty much it the rest of the way south to Grove City. Just briefly about me, and we'll be bringing this up probably in questions as we go through. I was born and raised here on the West Side, graduate of West High School, went to college in Boston at MIT, degree in economics, worked in industry, have owned several small businesses since. I served on the Columbus Board of Education for 8 years back in the 90s. And so my main issues here tonight have to do with economic growth and development, especially for here on the West Side and the South Sides that are part of our district.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Dobas. Now we will hear an introduction from Mr. Harris.
Thank you. I am Russ Harris. I've lived in Ohio most of my life, except the time I was away at school. I went to Syracuse University as a Ford Foundation Fellow at Syracuse. For 30 years, I was blessed with a career representing the teachers of Ohio with the Ohio Education Association. I've been around the State House in a policy role for about 35 years, something like that, even before I went to work with the teachers. So I'm pretty familiar with state policy. I always testified on the budgets, taxes, that stuff. I also have a background in economics. I've been on the board, and I'm the treasurer of My Project USA, which is here on Sullivan Avenue, working with Zirka Abed and the people of that great organization. So I've been serving the Somali Bantu community for the last 4 or 5 years and working with them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. And as I said earlier, you're going to get the first question. That question is, can you share with us what the biggest challenge might be that's currently facing your district and how you plan to deal with that challenge?
Thank you for the question. I think one of the biggest challenges is affordable housing. And I want to deal with that head on. I think that it's real important to get behind the mayor and the bond issue so that we get into affordable housing. I think we need a standard definition for affordable housing, because everybody that I talk to says, well, it's affordable to him, but it's not affordable to me. And I think that's a problem. The other thing that I want to do is I want to modify the longstanding homestead exemption in the state of Ohio. Ohio has had, if you're over 65 and you make less than $34,000 a year, you can have a continuing homestead exemption. I want to modify that so that we deal with the low income areas that are also targeted by the federal Community Reinvestment Act, all right, that banks do. That act was put in place because certain neighborhoods were redlined, and lending and financial institutions would not give them money for mortgages and to finance homes. We need still to address that problem. So I think one of the worst problems is letting seniors stay in their homes and making affordable housing for young families. That would be my answer.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dobas?
Thank you. To me, the number one challenge, especially here on the West Side and the South Side parts of our district, is economic development and growth. We've lost employers like General Motors, Westinghouse, International Harvester, and the South Side Buckeye Steel over the last generation. Between all those companies, well over 10,000 good-paying jobs have disappeared, and the only thing to replace them basically has been the casino. What we need are more employers bringing more good jobs to our community. And what I will do in the legislature is to use that position as an advocate for the West Side, for Grove City, for the South Side, try to bring more good employers here. With Intel coming to town, that's a great opportunity for Central Ohio especially, but Ohio in general, to become the Silicon heartland in manufacturing for America. And what we've got to do is make sure that this prosperity that arrives, we can share in this from the West Side and the South Side of Columbus. That said, we also need to make sure we've got in place workforce development policies and incentives so that adults who want to change professions will have that opportunity to take these jobs. We've got to make sure that our schools are as strong as possible, that our young people are learning as much as they can, so that they, again, will be able to take the jobs that will be available, and that they in turn can raise their families here in Central Ohio. And finally, the fourth area is with law enforcement. We need to make sure that our public safety continues to be strong and effective. We've simply got to make sure that basically law and order and justice are not mutually exclusive terms, and we can do it both. So those will be my priorities.
Thank you to both of you. Mr. Dobas, I'm gonna start with you this time. Can you tell me what your position is on government oversight of gun ownership and safety?
Okay. Well, that is, okay, gun ownership. First of all, we've got the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment is pretty clear that folks should be able to own guns. As far as what policies I might support, it all depends on what comes before us in the legislature, quite frankly. Many of them are left to the states to decide, although there have been a number of, a lot of that is taken to courts to say, okay, is this, how does this mesh with the Constitution? By and large, I think that the Second Amendment is clear. People should have the right to own guns. From there, let's engage in discussions that if there does need to be some type of regulation concerning who has got access, as in minors versus, well, not necessarily minors, but 18 to 21-year-olds, the type of weapons, folks who have perhaps some type of mental health issues or might be a danger to themselves or to the community. Those are things I think we should look at really carefully, make sure folks have due process, but also we got to make sure that folks who might be dangerous have a minimal chance of having firearms.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, Mr. Harris, I'm going to ask you that same question. Can you share more with us about your position on government oversight of gun ownership and safety, gun safety?
Sure. But I would certainly start out by pointing out that we've made all of our communities a lot less safe by passing permitless carry. It is ridiculous that we're going to allow a qualified adult to carry a gun without any training. We look at police officers, we look at the old training under concealed carry. All of those things were for a purpose, and they served a good purpose in terms of public policy. Now we have permitless carry. I talk to policemen, and I know policemen, and it's so much more risky now to go out in your car and go out into your neighborhood when everybody under the sun now can carry a gun without any training and without a permit, and with essentially there are no background checks. We go from universal background checks to no background checks. That doesn't make sense to me. One of the things that I'd like to see in terms of a law, I'd like to see a law that made it illegal to leave your gun in your car overnight. And I say that for a very good reason. In this police district here that's on Sullivan Avenue, I've talked to those officers, and time after time, I say, where does this 13-year-old get this gun? They steal them out of cars. They break the windows. Most of the guns actually come out of cars, and where some adult has left them overnight. That's not right. Plus, we need all of the common sense laws that might go along with the subject in terms of red flag laws and all of that. We need common sense gun legislation. But when we talk about guns in Ohio, there's nothing common about common sense.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. And now I'm going to start with you with this next question. Can you share with us all what your position is on women's reproductive rights and women's health?
I've knocked a lot of doors in the last few months. The back of my t-shirt, front of it is Russ Harris, Harris for Ohio. But the back of my t-shirt says, we won't go back. And I'm not willing to. And I want to be part of that force that changes Ohio and law in Ohio to restore in Ohio women's rights. This extreme legislation about the heartbeat bill, about everything else that's happened, it's because of gerrymandering and redistricting. Simple. These people could not pass those laws. 65% of the people in Ohio agree that women should have a choice and they should be able to protect their life in the case of rape and incest and so forth. The majority of people in Ohio agree about that. Does the legislature represent that? No. How can they do that? They can do that because they're unaccountable to their voters. And that unaccountability goes back years. In the 2010 census of Ohio, the Republicans carved out 62 House seats, and they have held them since then, essentially, giving them that supermajority. The most dangerous thing in politics in Ohio today is the supermajority in the House and in the Senate. So I think number one thing we need to do about restoring women's rights, along with taking care of all of these other issues, is restore functioning democracy in the Ohio legislature. We don't have it today, but we need it restored.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dobis. I'm going to ask the question again so you can kind of get framed up. What is your position on women's reproductive rights and women's health?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, it is my belief that we should create an environment where there are more and better choices and good choices for women and their futures. That said, I also believe that the rights of unborn children take precedence over those of any others, except in involuntary acts like rape, incest, as well as the health and the life of a mother. This is an issue that, if it doesn't get settled in the lame duck session, will be before one of the two of us next year, and is one that I think we need to listen to a variety of points of view and try, if we can, to forge some type of consensus and to move forward in a judicious and circumspect manner.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your answer on that one. Mr. Dobis, I'm going to start with you on this final question. Can you share with us how it is that you view Ohio's criminal justice system and tell us what changes you would make?
The criminal justice system, as I understand it in Ohio, is operating reasonably well, but there are always adjustments and reforms we've got to make. First of all, everyone must have a respect for the law, respect for order, and respect for each other's property. That goes without being said. Also said, once somebody has served a sentence, that is what we have collectively said should occur as the penalty. And the folks who have been previously incarcerated, when they get out, we need to be able to put support systems in place so there is not the recidivism that occurs today. That we've got to look at meaningful reforms and meaningful support systems that can enable somebody who has been incarcerated to go out and be productive after the time he or she is served, so they can be, again, a productive member of society, can own a home, can get a good job. And so we've got to figure out how we can get through this to make it happen without putting employers or others at due risk. I am not sure of those answers, but those are some of the things that I feel that we're going to need to do as we move forward, because we've got to make sure, again, that we have both law and order and justice in our state.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to bring it back to you now, Mr. Harris. And that question is, how is it that you view Ohio's criminal justice system, and what changes would you make?
Thank you for the question. I could actually talk about this a long time. I think the first thing we need to do in the justice system is we need to find out how all of these young defendants got before the courts. Was it poverty? Was it mental health problems? What exactly was the problem that landed them in the courtroom and with these charges? If we don't start addressing some of those issues when they're kids, we are not going to be able to deal with this problem as time goes on. I am very, very happy to see the origination and creation of more specialty courts to deal with things like mental health problems, with poverty, with immigrants, people that don't speak English, all of those things. I think that's very important. I want to talk about bail for a moment. I think the state of California is wrong. State of California went entirely cashless bail. I agree more with the Illinois model, particularly in the area of Chicago, where they've done away with cashless bail for minor felonies. It would be in Ohio, it would be equivalent to like a 5th degree felony. And I'm not saying that a 5th degree felony is not a serious crime. It is still in Ohio, but there's been some reform there, and they've done away with cashless bail. So I think all of these things are important, but the most important thing is addressing the problems, particularly with our youth. I say now, who's the biggest mental health provider in Franklin County for school children, teens, and young adults? Yeah, it's the juvenile detention system. And is that right? No, I do not think so. And parents and guardians need a place to take their kids.
Thank you. So we heard first. Oh, we do. We have 2 audience questions. I think it was you, Mr. Dobis, that went first this time. So I'm going to give this one to you, Mr. Harris. And what I see here is that according to the annual analysis done by the Health Policy Institute of Ohio, Ohio now ranks as 47th among all the states for healthcare provisions and outcomes. Would you support the Ohio Healthcare Act, currently HB 446 and SB 253, as a response to this huge failure?
Yes, I would. And, I'll be honest, right offhand, I don't remember the specifics of those acts. But I'll say this, anybody that watches the news, watches media, lives in Ohio, ought to be shocked at the problem with maternal morbidity. It's terrible in Ohio. Infant morbidity is terrible in Ohio. And to me, that almost doesn't make sense. How could a state with such an educated population and a state so wealthy as the state of Ohio have these bad measures of both maternal and infant morbidity, particularly in brown and Black women? So we have a lot of work to do. And I think both of these bills are fine, but we've got to make a much bigger investment in the screening, the education, the prenatal care, all of these things. So is the health system working? No, it's not working for everybody. It's not working for all Ohioans. Even though we have the government exchange where you can buy insurance and so forth, there are many people in Ohio that do not have insurance, and their health service is the emergency room, just like it was before. So we've got to fix that. And we're going to have to own up to that problem and address that problem.
Thank you so much for your answer to that question. I'll give it to you again, Mr. Dobis. According to the annual analysis done by the Health Policy Institute of Ohio, Ohio now ranks 47th among all of our United States for healthcare provision and outcomes. Would you support the Ohio Healthcare Act, currently HB 446 and SB 253, as a response to this huge failure?
Okay. I too don't know the specifics of those bills, so it'd be hard for me to say yes or no. Clearly, we need to do more in our state to assure that we have adequate health care for all of our people. The rating of 47th out of 50, I'm not sure. I did see that. I'm not sure what data they use for that, so I'm not altogether sure that is a valid measurement. That said, it's still not where it needs to be. And in particular, what Mr. Harris has cited, I think is true, particularly with Black and brown folks. The healthcare divide is much more than it should be, and we've got to do what we can to close those gaps. That said, we must educate folks a lot better. to make sure that they realize that they themselves are the first line of responsibility as far as their own health care is concerned. And that good nutrition, rest, not smoking and drinking, no illegal drugs, those can help folks avoid a variety of health issues. So, but that's going to be, I think, a major issue for some time to come. COVID, of course, brought a lot of these issues out in the open that had been existing for years. So the only good thing about COVID in that regard was that it did highlight divides that have occurred. We've got to address them. And these two bills probably are a good start. I would like to see, though, the exact provisions before I would say, yes, absolutely, I would support them as they are.
I appreciate your answers. We have one more question from the audience before we go into our closing remarks. And so I'm going to start with you this time, Mr. Dovis.
Sure.
Please share your thoughts on school vouchers and public school funding.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. You will find no greater advocate for public schools than I. I will tell you that being a graduate of West High School, serving 8 years on the Board of Education in Columbus, and while there, we enacted policies that ultimately resulted in increased test scores, increased graduation rates, even increased enrollment. So all of that said, though, what I'm really for is quality public education, quality education for all of our young people. And a lot of our young people are not being adequately served in the school systems as they are currently set up. And so that being the case, I think we do have to look at alternatives like school vouchers to help students and parents make better choices for their young people when they're not being adequately served. That said, we've also got to make sure that the scrutiny that we pay to our public school systems, our regular school districts like Columbus City Schools or Southwestern City Schools, those regulations, those requirements are great. It's not necessarily clear that those same regulations, requirements are there for many charter schools that are underperforming. And so we've got to make sure that there is accountability across the board.
Thank you, sir. And now I'm going to pose the same question to you, Mr. Harris. If you would, please tell me, what are your thoughts on school vouchers and public school funding?
Certainly it is a relevant question for me. I spent 14 years working on the Doroff case with the Bricker attorneys. The Republicans have spent 25 years denying the fact that the system was unconstitutional and funding it. We now have the Cupp-Patterson plan, all right? It's a good plan because it's based on cost. It's based on realistic factors that ought to go into a public education. But have they funded it? No. And you would think that being the Speaker of the House, Bob Cupp, would be able to fund his own funding plan, right? No, it hasn't happened. And it's not even on the horizon as far as I can tell. Am I against vouchers? 100%. All right, 100%. 6 out of 8 students in Ohio that have vouchers right now never attended a public school before. Think about that. So this is not about choice. This is not about families choosing a better pathway. This is about people that were homeschooling or were in religious schools or something else now being on the public dime and not paying tuition. 6 out of 8 students were never in the public school system. Not good. So I totally support. There's a lawsuit in Ohio right now. It's in Franklin County. I wish the judge would move it. Don't really have very much power with that. There's going to be a hearing on the motion to dismiss. It's called the Vouchers Hurt Ohio organization and law case. In other states around us, those laws that very conservative Republicans have passed have absolutely been ruled unconstitutional. That needs to be ruled unconstitutional in Ohio.
Thank you, sir. So the first person we heard today was Mr. Dobis. And so it's only fair that we'll give you the chance to close up.
Thank
Mr. Dobis, we're going to let you have your 1 minute of closing now, and we'll close up at the end then with Mr. Harris.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you again for having this here today. One of the things that I want to emphasize is my long-term West Side involvement. I served many years ago on the Greater Hilltop Area Commission. I've served as the president of the West High Alumni Organization, the largest dues-paying high school alumni organization in the entire state. We've given out over $200,000 of scholarships to graduating West seniors over the years. I've been president of the Hilltop Historical Society, the Hilltop Business Association. What I will use my position for is to advocate with the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, Jobs Ohio, the Ohio Department of Development, One Columbus, the Columbus Partnership, to bring more and better jobs to our community. We need a West Sider to represent the West Side. It will be the first time we've had that type of effective representation from a West Sider since the 1960s, when Matt Pemberton was our state representative.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Harris, if you would.
Thank you. I think the choice is very clear in this election. It's going to be about basic human rights, restoring that right that was taken away from women after 50 years. Ridiculous. I'm an economist. I have a lot of thoughts about what needs to be done about reforming taxes in Ohio. The reform program that we went through a few years ago, it really hasn't worked. So I would just say that the choice is very clear. If you want to restore basic human rights, you want better quality education. I've been around education policy for 40 years, and not only education policy, but all tax policy, economic development policy, all the policies that affect the public and public education. So I'm a known quantity. The education community all over the state of Ohio knows me. And I think I can be a strong influence in the State House.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let's give our candidates a round of applause. I thank you both for what you shared, and I thank you for the civil manner in which you shared it. We will hear next from Will Ireland and Bill Sperlazza. But as they come up, I want to acknowledge we have tonight several electeds and candidates that are in the room that are running either unopposed or will not be speaking tonight because they don't have their opposition present. And so the three I have listed now is the Senator Herschel Craig, who's running unopposed in District 15. Thank you for your service, sir. Thank you for your presence. We also have tonight on site with us Mr. Joe Wharton running for state rep in District 6. Thank you for your service and thank you for your presence. His opponent, Adam Miller, is currently serving right now his service to the United States Armed Service. He's away for his reserve duty. But again, I wanted to thank those electeds who are present, and we won't hear from Tina. Maharath is here as well. Will we not be hearing from you tonight? Oh, got it. So without her opponent, we will not be hearing from Tina Maharath from District 3 as well. Yes. So thank you for your presence and thank you for your service. And I'm sorry we don't get to hear from you tonight.
I will make one follow-up comment to that. Tina and Michelle went to our candidate forum in Gahanna on Thursday. So if you'd like to hear their views on many of the questions that were just asked of the state legislative candidates earlier tonight, you can check that out on our YouTube channel. And thank you, Tina, for being here.
All right, we will continue to try to get out of here as closely as to being on time as we can. We have Merle Sperlazza and Will Ireland. Please come take your seats. And let's see here. These are our candidates who are running for Franklin County Common Pleas Court. And let's see. Mr. Sperlazza, I'm going to start with you just to give you time to get ready. I'm going to ask you to begin with a 1-minute introduction, and Mr. Ireland, you will follow. All right? If you would, please.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Always great to see a standing room only event. My name is Bill Sperlazza. That's Sperlazza with 2 Z's, Sperlazza. I'm an endorsed Democrat running for judge of the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas. We're running in an open seat race, so neither of us are seated judges. We're running to take the place of a retiring judge. I grew up on the north side of Youngstown. I came to Columbus in 2003 to go to law school at Ohio State University. I've been here ever since. My wife, Abby, who's also an attorney, and I have 3 children, Autumn, who is 8, Nora, who is 6, and my son, Willie, who is 16 months old. I've worked in the courtrooms of Columbus for 17 years, Columbus City Attorney's Office. I practice civil law, criminal law. I've been a plaintiff's attorney, a civil defense attorney, and I practice administrative law. I want you to know that I'm endorsed by police, fire, teachers, labor unions, and religious groups. But perhaps what I'm most proud of is the bipartisan Columbus Bar Association Screening Committee saw fit to give me 5 stars out of 5, one of 2 non-seated judges to get that rating. My peers have put that faith in me. I hope you will too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ireland, would you please take advantage of this 1 minute to share with us who you are?
Thank you very much, Malik. My name is Will Ireland. I just came upon 29 years experience in the Franklin County Common Pleas Court. I have worked in nearly every level of that court. I've done 17 years of indigency service. That is representing people who can't afford a lawyer. Probably, aside from my 41-year relationship and marriage with my wife, probably one of the things that I'm most proud of. I think experience counts in this division. This is the major division. I practiced in federal, state, county, municipal, mayor's courts throughout the state, civil, juvenile, domestic, probate. I practice in every area, and I know how those areas combine to impact. I have no allegiance to anyone but justice and you, the public. I am not here pondering or peddling endorsements. I am here for equal access and protection under the law, and that has been my duty and service for the last 29 years. I'm a 30-year retired combat veteran.
Thank you. Mr. Ireland, we're going to stay with you.
Yes, sir.
You just used the word equity, and so that relates to our first question. Can you tell us, how is it that you'll ensure fairness in the courtroom?
You know, it's an interesting thing what we have. Do I have 2 minutes on this, Mr. Malik?
You do, sir.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1
1 minute,
minute.
that's right. Judges have 1 minute, if I may.
That's
Thank
right.
you very much. Equity and access is a many and differing thing. People who are not funded, the people with broken faces, broken dreams, broken teeth, the people who are broken, our fractured community, the people in our neighborhoods who are underprivileged don't have the same access. And that's what I've dedicated my life and professional service to. I've seen it as a combat veteran, both as a combat aviator, paratrooper. I started out as a heavy wheel vehicle mechanic. My point is this: I've seen life in Kuwait, Qatar, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Afghanistan. I've seen it in Serbia and Central America. I never thought I'd come home to Columbus and see what we're going through here today. We need to expand our courts. We need a specialty docket for veterans. We don't have that in the Common Pleas Court. I would institute that. I'd also expand our hours. We need to knock off the 9 to 5. We need to be available for the public when they can come to court to not interfere with their jobs. And that's what we're doing today. We're serving servants, not the public. So we need to look to that as well.
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Ireland. Mr. Sperlazza, I'm going to give you that same question. Please tell us how it is that you'll ensure fairness in the courtroom.
Excellent. Thank you. Fairness and equity is the essence of being a judge in a courtroom. We need to elect folks who are ready to go to the courtroom to be fair, kind, hardworking, honest, and compassionate in our courtrooms. And it's more than just seeing somebody that comes into your courtroom and saying, what have they been charged with? What penalties can I give them? The more important question is, why is that person here? What led this person to do what they did that led them to our courtroom? And when you can identify that, then you can identify what services and what help you can give some folks to help them get off of that track and towards a track of being a good, productive citizen that's not going to be in your courtroom anymore. So to me, that's what's most important, asking the why, not the what are you charged with, what penalties do I have at my disposal. Some folks, that's what it has to be. But most folks, it's about trying to help them find a better path.
Thank you for your answer, Mr. Sperlazza. Now I'm going to start with you with this question. please share with me how it is that you'll make common pleas court more efficient.
Thank you. As I see efficiency, it's really a twofold issue. I agree with Mr. Ireland completely. On time, ready to go. You might think every judge is in court at 8 or 9 a.m. ready to go and willing to stay late to get things done. That's just not the case. So the first thing you need to do is you need to elect people that are hardworking folks who are ready to commit their lives to this degree of public service, to be there on time, prepared, ready to go. But secondly, there are many issues between when a case is filed and potentially a case goes to trial or is settled, all right, that occur via motion practice or things of that nature, where we need our judges to be more efficient. I'll give you a brief example. In civil practice, attorneys can file motions for summary judgment, essentially asking the judge to rule on the case on the basis of law and not before a trial. When we have judges that take 4, 5, 6, 7 months to rule on those, that's 4, 5, 6, 7 months that we're not negotiating, we're not plea bargaining, we're not trying to get cases settled, we're not trying to get cases through the system. It's unacceptable to have judges take that long to process these motions. We need judges that'll get things done.
Thank you both for these answers. And yes, we heard from both of you on how to make court more efficient. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Ireland, we didn't hear from you yet. How is it that you can make common pleas court more efficient? My apologies.
Mr. Malik, well understood. And I know that this is taking up your time, and I really appreciate your time. And I thank Jennifer and Mr. Malik for organizing such a wonderful event. Very important. You know, I think being decisive, and I think most importantly, the criminal division, which constitutes the bulk of the work in the Franklin County Common Pleas Court. The colloquy is now taking, what's colloquy? Rule 11, that's dispensation of rights, must be reviewed with the judge pursuant to constitutions required by the law. 30 minutes. 30 minutes is what they've harnessed our judges with. I think they start tomorrow morning and wouldn't be done. I think they'd accrue more cases. My point is this: I know how to take care of business. I can do it efficiently. I've been doing it for years. I've tried all of the hard cases there of every stripe, including our federal courts and RICO cases. So experience counts in this matter. It's about expanding the hours as well. And it is about being there on time and getting the job done and issuing decisions. Shuttle diplomacy is important when it comes to civil cases. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sperlazza, we heard from you first, so we're going to hear from Mr. Ireland last. And this is the time where we go ahead with our closing remarks. First? Yes, please.
Okay. I appreciate y'all being here. I'm going to take my minute of closing and give you my public service announcement that I know all our judicial candidates are going to agree with. Folks, you're not going to believe what I'm about to say, but on average, between 25 and 33% of voters skip their judicial races on their ballot. All right. We are not electing judges that are representative of our voters when up to a third of them skip the races. Why? I think it's because our judicial races are nonpartisan on the ballot. They won't have D's or R's by them. So here's my plea to you. Number one, when you go to the ballot, please have a plan to vote for your judicial races, because for those folks who do go down the ballot with all D's or all R's, those letters aren't going to be there. So have a plan to vote for your judicial races. Please vote in every single race on your ballot. There's a lot of races on your ballot this year, so don't get too tired. Finish them all. And please let your friends, neighbors, and family know to do the same. And please consider voting for me, Bill Sperlazza, Sperlazza with 2 Z's, Sperlazza on November 8th, or early vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sperlazza, for both of your Z's.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Ireland, if you would.
Thank you very much. I think, what are we looking for to jurists? I want decisiveness. I want empathy. I want them to be concise, take care of business. I learned that in the military, and it's important what I went through. Our veterans may respond differently under certain situations. They deserve that special consideration and linked with support and the wraparound support we owe them in the continuum of sanctions. What do I mean? When Chief Justice Moyer reformed our criminal justice system here in Ohio with truth in sentencing, what's commonly been known as truth in sentencing, we had a continuum of sanctions. I was a member of that court, part of that group that developed those sanctions. It's very important. I want to talk briefly about my wife. My wife's CEO of House of Hope, the oldest treatment facility in Franklin County. She's the CEO. We have built such a strong relationship over time, and that's what counts, folks. And that's what I'm going to build with you. I'm going to give you the very best in experience and the wisdom that I've derived through multiple deployments throughout the planet and my experience in the courts to serve you as a jurist. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you both for sharing as much as you did. And again, Thank you for your civility. Thank you for your civility.
We tried to wait together. We remain friends till the day we move on.
That is awesome. All right, so now we're gonna call up judicial candidates Kim Browne and Don Roberts, please. All right, we're moving right along. We had some tech issues in the beginning that delayed us in beginning, so we're gonna try to keep moving forward. And so at this time, we're gonna hear from Franklin County Common Pleas judicial candidates that are running for the domestic division. And we have Kim Browne, and we also have Mr. Don Roberts. So thank you both for being here. And Judge Browne, Your Honor, I'm gonna ask you if you could begin with a 1-minute introduction, and Mr. Roberts will have you follow next. Thank you.
Thank you, Malik.
Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Jennifer, and thank you all for being here. I am Judge Kim A. Browne, and I am a sitting judge on the Franklin County Domestic Relations and Juvenile Court. I have been your judge for 20 years. I have been elected 4 times by Franklin County voters. I am a resident of Gahanna. I have a husband of 31 years. He is a 31-year veteran, a retiree of the United States Army. He went back to school. He is now the assistant principal at a Columbus City Middle School. We have 2 children who are Gahanna residents and graduates. And I myself have graduated from the University of Cincinnati and Ohio State College of Law. I have my lid out here. I am endorsed by labor, by firefighters, by clergy and Teachers for Better Schools. I have a great deal of experience before I came to the bench. I'm a lawyer of 29 total years. I've served the court as its administrative judge and its juvenile judge. And my time is up.
Thank you, Judge Browne. Thank you so much. Mr. Roberts, we'd love to hear from you now.
Thank you. I'm Don Roberts. I've been practicing in Franklin County Domestic and Juvenile Court for 20 years now. In addition to that, I've been holding the hands of men, women, and children as they've made their way through juvenile and domestic court in 48 counties in Ohio. I've also practiced and followed my clients through states as far as California. I've went to practiced as in Illinois, in Tennessee, in Kentucky. Clients in juvenile and domestic court, they are loyal to you and they expect that loyalty. It's time to practice and move on into the judiciary and represent those clients in the best way that I can by reflecting back to them in a way that they can see the experience that I've practiced with them alongside them at the table, now at the bench. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. The first question is going to come to you, Your Honor. So Judge Browne, I want to ask you, what are your specific qualifications to be a judge in the domestic division?
Thank you. Well, as I stated, I have been on the bench for 20 years. I am highly recommended by the Central Ohio Association for Justice. I am 5-star rated by the Columbus Bar Association, who actually vets judges and determines, who they would represent to their constituents as a good candidate for judge. As I said before, I have served the court, the capacity of the juvenile judge and the administrative judge for the past 6 years. I have also served Franklin County on the Supreme Court, 2 different Supreme Court advisory committees. I am active in the community. I'm active within the schools. I am a mock trial coach. I brought TAPS, which is the Teen and Police Service Academy, to Columbus City Schools, specifically to its middle schools. And I believe that, your judges have to be accessible to you. I believe the judges have to make themselves available and be good stewards of their time and be good stewards of their time. So I'm going to stop talking.
Again, I thank you for honoring that time qualification we had. Mr. Roberts, I'm now going to ask you the same question. What are your qualifications to be a judge in the domestic division, sir?
My qualifications, I think, are very interesting because, again, my qualifications come from experience in doing the thing that judges would be actually listening to and actually making decisions based on. I'm the guy that actually brought domestic violence victims to court, bruised and battered and bloody. I'm the one that represented those victims. I'm also the person that represented those respondents that were accused of domestic violence issues. I handled those cases. I handled the mental health clients that came forth asking for a fair shake in their parenting classes or parenting cases where they were wanting a fair shake on getting visitation with their children. I'm the one that brought forth juveniles to see that they got justice and either got counseling or they got the right type of cases or right type of consequences for the issues that they were facing and how they made their way through the court system. I'm that person that dealt with those issues and understood how they had to be handled in a way that the courts would need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. All right, I'm going to start with you this time, Mr. Roberts, on this question. Can you share what alternative dispute resolution programs exist that you would support, if there's any, and using these to resolving a domestic court case?
I think alternative dispute resolution, it exists already and it's always existed, because just like almost every judge that sits on the bench says something that I think resonates, and it should. They say to almost every party that sits before them, you people are the best ones to decide your cases. And if there's anything that sounds more true, it's that, because those parties really hold the keys, the answers to their case. And if the court really believes in anything, that it would be to let them try to do that. So if we always take an opportunity to let those parties decide their cases, then that's going to be, whether it's a divorce case, a juvenile custody case, if it's to give an opportunity for juvenile offenders to work with the prosecutor in alternative dispute or alternative resolutions rather than more severe consequences, some type of programming. All of those ways are alternative dispute resolutions. We just have to be creative in finding those resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I'm sorry, Mr. Roberts.
That's okay. You can call me Brown, you can call me Roberts. Vote Roberts.
I love the civility. Judge Brown. Judge Brown, I want to ask you what alternative dispute resolution programs exist that you would support, if there are any, in resolving domestic court cases.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you about the ones I created.
All right.
So I created the police initiated diversion program, which is a program that's a warm handoff between CPD and young youthful offenders 24/7, a warm handoff, meaning that you can call a JASA specialist, which you would know as a probation officer, to hand off that case to us so that police officer can get back to work. I've also created I've also created the TAPS program, which again is an effort to bring firsthand kids and police officers together to understand the things that they're doing and how that impacts the community. We talk about restitution, and we talk about recidivism, and we talk about victims awareness and being made whole. And on the domestic side, as the AJ, I created Mediation Week. This is something that is prevalent in general division, but in domestic relations court, we never did Mediation Week. And so that was something also that I created to expedite cases and get your resolutions to you quicker.
Excellent. We've come time where we're going to now have our closing remarks. Judge Brown, I'm going to ask you to close first, and then we'll hear from, I'm sorry?
I went first.
You went first?
Didn't I go first? With my opening? I did.
Okay, so since you went first, we're going to hear from him last. So we're going to ask him to close. Right? That's what we've been doing tonight, right? The person that starts answers the last question first, and we hear the last. So Judge Brown, if you would give us your closing remarks.
Okay. Right, sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
I thought it was the other way around. Okay, again, I am Judge Kim Browne, Domestic Relations and Juvenile Court. I asked for your support on November 8th. I think I've done a great job on the bench. I think I've served this community honorably. And I would like to echo the sentiments that you're heard from some of the other candidates and some that you might hear after we're done talking, that the drop off for judicial races is as much as 40%. We need you, regardless of who you decide to vote for. Just make sure that you consider every race, consider every candidate. There are no small candidates, there are no small issues. I truly believe that today more than ever, justice matters. The judges that you pick matters. Experience matters. People who can give you a cogent timely decision matters. People who bring their creativity and their energy to the bench every single day matter. People who are willing to do Zoom calls, as I have been, at 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, to accommodate your schedules because you couldn't get off work to do your dissolution or your uncontested divorce. So go all the way down and vote for Judge Browne. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Roberts?
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. I'm going to ask you to vote for Don Roberts, and I'm going to ask for you to work your way all the way down to the bottom of that ballot, because that's where domestic court ballots, or the domestic court race is at. And I ask you that because I am that candidate that will show up every morning, first thing in the morning, and I will stay there as late as it takes. I will do the same thing that I do in my practice. I stay late, I work weekends, I do whatever it takes to make sure the job is done. That's the passion that I bring. I am known as the attorney that brings the passion, okay? I am the person that takes care of my clients. I take it personal to make sure that these cases are taken care of the right way and the right results are handled. This is not something that I have other issues that I want to take care of besides my clients. My clients in this case would be my docket, and I would take care of them just as passionately as I do my clients right now. Thank you.
Thank you both, and let's give them all a round of applause.
For being here. It's nice to see more people than candidates.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you both for your civility. All right. Moving along and maintaining this existing spirit of civility, we will now hear from Franklin County Common Pleas judicial candidates that are running for the domestic division, Douglas Nobles and Janie Roberts. All right, Ms. Roberts, I'm going to ask you to begin with the 1-minute introduction once we're all seated, which means that I'm going to give the last word at the end to Mr. Nobles. All right. So, Ms. Roberts, as I said, you get the first question. That first question is, oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. If you would, I'm going to give you your minute to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Janie Roberts. I am running for the domestic branch of Common Pleas Court. It covers domestic court as well as the juvenile branch. It's a pretty complicated court. I think it's a court that affects most people more than any other court, so it's very important who the judges are. I have been a lawyer since 1985. I moved here in 1982. I love Franklin County. I didn't intend to stay, but I did, and I really love it. I have my own law office. I practice in the court in every single type of case that we hear. I have represented thousands of people, hundreds of trials. Since 2006, I've had my own practice, mostly in domestic and juvenile court. Before that, I was a magistrate in juvenile court. I'm very experienced there. I have ideas of things I want to do to make it better. I am a hard worker, and I know the law. I can interpret the law. I will treat everyone fairly. And 1 minute doesn't seem like very